Sweet. Fix my hairs. Welcome, folks, to today's board game design stream. I'm your host, Emma Larkins. Today we're going to make a board game, or a role-playing game, or a parlor game, playground game. We're pretty flexible with the stuff we come up with here on the show. Mostly what we're coming up with is a concept for a game, and then building it out rules-wise. Sometimes do a little bit of prototyping right at the end of the show. Sometimes not. Sometimes it's more like, if this were a game, this is what it would look like. So yeah, I've had a busy few past days. Let's see, got everything. Got my notebook here, ready for our brainstorm. Just got done with PAX. I was going to say I got back from PAX, but PAX is local to Seattle, so didn't have too far to go. Lots of fun stuff. Did a lot of panels. A lot of silly panels. Had a Mario Maker panel. Casting without components about role-playing games. Also did a thing with the Alexandria RPG library. Making, teaching, and running a role-playing game all over the span of 4 hours. So, yeah, that was intense. It makes me feel even more comfortable to be doing this, because this compared to that is crazy. Because over the course, we had 2 hours to make this thing, and over the course of 2 hours here, you know, kind of like, this is an interesting direction. I think I could flesh this out some more. For the thing I did at PAX, at that 2 hour mark, we had to teach the game to someone and run a game. It was very intense, very stressful, very fun. I'm looking forward to doing more of that sort of stuff. I haven't done a ton of straight role-playing game design, mostly storytelling design and then board game design, a little bit of video game design, so it's fun to get my feet more wet with that. I'm actually excited about my idea. Hello, Senior Bob. Welcome once more to the chat. We're just talking a little bit about the role-playing games design challenge. What was it? It was like an Iron Chef meets role-playing games thing. We all started out with the same one ingredient, which was modern art. Each of us had our own specific thing we had to work with. Mine was McDonald's Play Place. We each had our own specific mechanic to work in. Mine was wagering. And then we got a few other things over the course of the challenge as well. One of mine was last polar bear on Earth. So I ended up coming up with this idea that was, my mind immediately went post-apocalyptic / Lord of the Flies. You're trapped in the place with no memory of your past. You have to send out one person at a time into the dark beyond of the ball pit to search for supplies, and you're building a sculpture in the center of this cavern, this play place that you're trapped within, in order to summon your rescue. For the wagering, I changed it a bit, because in the time I couldn't quite figure out what to do with wagering, so instead a little more guessing, where you would take a colored block. The Hamburglar, who is the person who went out into the wild beyond, would also pick a colored block from a hat, and you'd be trying to match what the Hamburglar had chosen based on the wisdom of Billy, who can only say one word. So I had a little bit of a Mysterium Dixit feel to it. It went okay. Doing everything in 2 hours was probably a little fast. Would have liked a little bit more time to put things together. Oh, also people were walking around asking questions while we were trying to figure this stuff out, which is cool. I'm very excited to share my design process. I think it's awesome for people who haven't seen it done to see nothing, and all of a sudden there's charts, and there's mind maps, and there's player role cards, and all sorts of stuff evolving in front of the designers. But it definitely would have been easier with periods of focus, and then people can come around and ask questions. But I like the concept. I'm not going to theme it McDonald's, obviously, unless I get the licensing for that. But I like this thought that you're trapped in a place with limited memories of the past, reminiscent of, and then we died. And then you have to send a person out, having some roles that move around the group. So I had, in addition to the Hamburglar and to Billy, who was like the Oracle, I had the mayor, whose word was absolute truth. And anyone who disagreed with the mayor would be punished. And I wanted to create this feel of tension between people going into the outside world and being like, it's really not that bad out here, and then the mayor being like, no, it's terrible. We can't go out there. We can't survive. So I have a lot of ideas for the tension. Someone suggested for the wagering that you would wager your influence to become the mayor. Work around that a little bit, buff up the role-playing aspects, because it was more of a storytelling game than a strict role-playing game, but I think there's some really fun stuff you can do role-playing wise in there. Anyways, it was super fun. I learned a lot and made another game. So I'm always happy when I can create a game, especially something I can play test and have people play. I was also talking with a lot of people at PAX about just getting more one-pagers out there and micro games, posting more stuff on my website, just a little video, a little short description, something. A lot of people are putting not digital role-playing games, but like a PDF or something of a role-playing game up on itch.io. So drive-through RPGs, there's a lot of different spaces where you can put stuff and just have it for 99 cents or whatever, small donation, have ways that people can contribute and support and see the kinds of things that people are into and excited about, and give people I'm just drawing out as I'm discussing here. Yay, I'm so excited. Whee! Give people more access to the stuff that I'm working on, because I'm working on a lot of things, but with the slow life cycles of board game design, it can take a lot of time between product releases, and it's like I don't want to wait that long. I want to get more stuff out there faster so I can get more feedback and see the kinds of things that people are responding to. Hello, game biologist. Showing Blake to the chat tonight and missed half of the explanation, but have you seen the movie The Village? It's about a small isolated village and the community's past knowledge about the threats outside it keep people in the village out of the caution and fear. I've not seen it. I don't really watch scary movies, although I hear it's more of a thriller than really a horror movie. But yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing the kind of vibe that I am going for. Anything cultish, right? Again, referring back to Lord of the Flies, isolation. It's just really fascinating to see groups fascinating and tragic often, right? Groups in isolation and the kinds of behaviors and hierarchies, especially groups in isolation under pressure, seeing the kinds of things that evolve out of that and like the weird social structures that happen. I think there's a lot of fun design space to explore with that. Okay. So that was Sunday's game, but it's not Sunday anymore, it's Tuesday. So now we're going to make a new game, and we're going to figure out what that was. Before we dive into it, I like to refer to a little bit of the stuff that we did last week, because we were all over the place last week, which was super fun. Everything from migration paths to salmon. I think one of the best sentences is down here somewhere. Scrapbook our salmon cannon bear journey. So that in a nutshell is what we worked on last week. Talking about scrapbooking, like a legacy role-playing game, which is cool because I had a lot of ideas about that that I want to flesh out before I talk about more, but I think I came up with something really cool related to that. And then this idea of sewing pathways in fabric was also super cool. Game biologist, definitely not a horror movie, and since it's Shyamalan movie, you know there's a twist, and we'll probably see it coming. I don't know, I'm easily scared. I'm a big old wimp. I think... Yeah, I played the game Gone Home, which is this amazing narrative, story-driven game. And you're in a house in a storm, and the power is going out. And Phil bought this game for me. And I was like, this is not a horror game. Is it? He's like, no, it's not a horror game. And then I kept going, and it got scarier. Like, if a ghost jumps out at me or something bites my face, you're gonna be in trouble because I'm a wimp when it comes to scary stuff. But I should probably check that out. What I like to do for horror movies is just go on Wikipedia and read the synopses for them because it's less scary. So I should shoot. Game design. Yeah, we will get to our game that we were making today. I will not forget. But I like to folder make sure that anytime I'm talking about stuff or have ideas or some of these suggestions to make a note of them because we're gonna have this really cool idea and I don't want to lose it. Because it's easy to be like, oh no, we talked about that thing and it's the one core piece that I need to move my design forward. Oh yeah, the game is called The Happy Place, right? Because it's McDonald's. I was pretty happy with that, coming up with that name in such a short amount of time. Read the synopsis for the village. Cool. Alright. I'm guessing you haven't played 10 Candles yet then? 10 Candles. What is that? It sounds familiar. It has actual candles. Flexible, fire-like game of tragic horror designed by Stephen Dewey and published by Cavalry Games. I'm so totally in love with it. Its many scenarios take place in a variety of apocalypses where thick darkness blankets the earth and an evil force known as Them threatens humanity. Ooh. That looks really cool. That actually looks really cool. I think... So I used to tell ghost stories when I was a kid. And I used to read some... Like, I really like the Goosebumps. I don't know how I managed that, because those Goosebumps books are pretty scary. But there was a certain point where I was really into those. And we went camping, and I would tell scary stories there. I think the told story, when you're telling it, it's a little less scary. I mean, it's not... A lot of the stuff I don't like in modern horror movies are, like, body horror. Or just, like, some of them get pretty gruesome. And just unnecessarily... So it's like, oh, you know something really bad's going to happen to this person. There's the tension, then it happens, and yeah. Scary stuff. 10 Candles sounds cool, though. I'm going to post the... link here, because it seems like a really cool thing that people should check out if they're into that sort of stuff. All right, moving right along to our brainstorm for today. We need a word. I have a word in mind. If anyone else has something that they want to talk about today, we can do that alternately. Always start with a word for my mind map to come up with ideas. If anyone ever has a design challenge that they want to submit, actually, that's a good point. Literally just thought of this. I should ask for some design challenges on Twitter sometime before the stream. That would be cool. Give people a little bit more time to think of things. Well, I like this. I do really like this structure where mind mapping and going from the either mechanical idea or thematic idea and letting the concept arise from that. The Fly. Is The Fly, are you saying that that's the horror movie, or is that what you want to do for a brainstorm, Senior Bob? Oh my gosh, The Fly. I don't even know. This is Jeff Goldblum, right? The Fly. Jeff Goldblum. Oh yeah, it is Jeff Goldblum. Gets turned into a fly? Or he's like half fly? This is... It's like, oh, ew, gross. That's, wow. That's really gross. And a brilliant but eccentric scientist begins to transform into a giant man-fly hybrid after one of his experiments goes horribly wrong. 1986? 1985? Be afraid, be very afraid. This tagline, is this the book? Body horror. No, this is the movie. The cover of this movie is bizarre. Alright. Yeah, because he's like, oh, he's teleporting. Oh, okay, cool. Oh, that's cool. Like teleporting from one place to another, but then a fly gets in there. It's so bizarre, right? It's so random. Sorry, I'm just reading the synopsis of this. Yeah, he's teleporting and then gets mixed up with the fly and yeah, other stuff happens. Becomes less human in appearance. Well, this actually sounds kind of cool. I'm reading through, that's the thing about reading through synopses of movies on Wikipedia. You have to be pretty sure you're not going to watch it, because it just gets spoiled for you. Just referencing a classic body horror movie. Yeah. It's not, body horror. Right. There's different, I feel like body horror has evolved a lot over time. Like The Fly, I think it's disturbing, but fascinating. It's kind of like cool. The one that really bothers me is like my friends took me to the movie to see Saw. It's just like, I don't want to see somebody like chained to a wall who has to cut off their leg so they don't get set on fire or something. It's just like, why? It just seems unnecessary. I'm gonna post the link to that. The Fly is the fly that kept buzzing the world building panel at Grand Con this past weekend, repeatedly evaded capture by the increasingly frazzled panelists. Now that's a game theme. Ooh. Okay. I'm gonna start with flies. My idea was a nice, pleasant idea. I was gonna write about tea, because I got my chai tea here with honey and milk that I'm sipping on, but no, I'm not doing tea. We're doing flies now, because that's where we're at. That does sound really miserable, though, for a panel. I don't think I've ever had any insect invaders for the panels that I've done. Maybe like a little one, but like a big buzzy fly, I could see that being really frustrating. Especially because you just be trying to ignore it for a while, right? And then someone would be swatting, and then everyone would be paying attention to the fly. Oh yeah, evil. Flies are evil. Flies. A fly in the tea? Oh, it's in your bob. That's gross. I don't want any flies in my tea. Flies and the swatting thereof. Buzzing / distraction. It's pretty fascinating, right? That something so small can be so annoying to us as humans. Not even to humans, right? Like animals don't like flies. No one likes flies. Sorry, flies. I feel bad, but it's true. And like you've seen the things, animals, like they're swishing their tail and they get in their eyes and they're just it's like they were handcrafted to be as annoying and frustrating as imaginably possible. From the sound, where it's just constant and then either constant or like going in and out, the sight of them, right? Like you see it and then you lose track of it and then you see it again, so it's just like appearing in and out of your vision. The touch, right? If it lands on you, it's you know, and just like knowing all these things are coming, right? You know it's gonna land on you, so you're like flying at it, but then you can't possibly catch it because they're wily. Designed. Making me think of, oh my gosh, this would be probably a terrible game, but can you design the most annoying thing? Like build a machine of annoyance. The annoyance machine. We come up with some really good ideas on this stream. I'm very appreciative of it. Let me get to my current design page. We also come up with some just... I don't want to say some ideas are good and some are bad, but this seems awful. This seems like the pie face game, right? Where you get slapped in the face with a face full of whipped cream. Build a machine designed for maximum annoyance. I'm going to put the fly in there. I'll put the link in there as well. Waiter, there's a fly in my soup. The protagonist in these stories is the fly. It's like a little insect superhero. You know that zebras evolved? No. Zebras evolved stripes to confuse flies? What? That is crazy. That has to go in here. Make a game about that, right? Alright, so we wrote down annoyance machine, but what if instead it's devices created or evolved to avoid annoyance? That would be a very strong motivator, right? We talked about player motivations and designing ways to encourage or direct player behavior. Avoiding annoyance is a really strong one. Direct player behavior. Avoid being annoyed. Even a lot of like the fiddlier bits of board games and setting things up can be anything that's not intended to be annoying, that just happens to be fiddly or annoying, something that players try to get away from. Maddie Leg. Hiya. First time on one of these. Not sure how long I'll be able to follow. Kids bedtime, etc. But I'm enjoying this. Maddie Leg, thank you so much for joining us. Something about the fact that flies have short lifespans. Ooh. Ooh. Yeah. Lifespan, life cycle. See, this page is getting... That's a really cool thing for insects in particular, and why they use them in a lot of science experiments, right? Like fruit flies, harder to say than it sounds, and evolution, right? Tracking different genetics because their generations happen so quickly. I think they have a lifespan of like a day or something. Lifespans, life cycles of insects. Yeah, something along those lines. Annoyance? You must mean Annoyatron. Oh my gosh, Annoyatron. Yes. This is such a good flavor for a card. Build your own Annoyatron. I love the card art itself is so cute though, and then it's like just an incredibly frustrating card, which is, at least for a collectible card game, it's funny to put in a few cards like that, but if you have the whole game based around that, I spelled Annoyatron wrong, you could potentially make people not like it. Now I'm having flashbacks to old Domino's pizza commercials. Gotta avoid the Noid. Oh no. Oh wait, is this? Oh gosh, I hate that so much. Oh wow. Okay. You see, we want to inspire emotions in our players. We want to craft an experience within the world of our game. Why can't that world be about annoyance? The Noid. Oh my gosh. Is Noid supposed to be like annoyed? Is that where that came from? Because that's real bad. That's kind of funny, but mostly bad. I wonder if flies find us annoying as we find them. Maybe turn it on its head. Ooh, I like that. Turn around. I've got that song stuck in my head for days. I just like keeps coming back, right? We annoy the flies. Okay. There's a couple of things going on here, bouncing around. We have life cycles, flies not living a long time. Time in their short time on Earth. They just want to do their job, get along with their lives, but us dumb humans keep getting in the way and annoying them. Yeah, I like that. You could have from the fly perspective. Have your picnic or your fruit bowl. You know, you got your I was going for banana, but it got real skinny. Incredibly skinny banana. And then just very triangular banana. I'm having a lot of time, a lot of difficulty with this bunch of bananas. There we go. That's more bananoid. Your bananas. You got your apples in here. Some grapes. And now watch. Now observe as I draw a bowl of fruit surrounded by flies. That's what we get on this channel. It's all Senior Bob's fault. I see. Well, it makes me think of Bugs or an Ant's Life. Is that the movie? Ant's Life, right? But oh wow, no! Oh my gosh! Oh, this is bad. A Bug's Life. Oh my gosh, this is what it's called. Okay. So I was thinking in the movie A Bug's Life, right? But I thought it, because there's ants with a Z and then A Bug's Life, and I googled an ant's life, and this is a real thing. Oh no, it's like a knockoff that looks so bad. I have to post this. Yeah. I feel like we can make something just based upon the horror that is an ant's life. It's funny because those two, Ants and A Bug's Life, both came out around the same time from two different studios. And one of them, I think I watched Ants and enjoyed it, but A Bug's Life was the more popular one. And the other one was like, oh, that's just a knockoff of Bug's Life. Kemal just says, back to the annoyed ants. It's because you get annoyed when you get cold or soggy pizza. So they were developing technology to get pizza delivered in better condition to save it from the Noid. Oh, okay, gotcha. A little more history about the Noid for those of you who miss that lovely thing of the 90s. The Fly is the hero trying to survive in an annoying world that is trying to kill it. Ooh, we got some elements of role-playing games here. I'm all on the role-playing game train now. Ooh. Role-playing game. We play as flies. Is that a thing? Okay, I'm gonna do my thing where I Google to see if somebody has done this idea already, which you probably shouldn't do. Don't not make things because people have done similar things, because yours is going to be different. But when I see a weird idea like this, I want to see if there is some funny niche thing. Fly casual with these space smuggler RPGs. Flying Circus. A role-playing game where you're flies. Cool. I don't think it's a thing. Yay! We totally take over this fly playing. Gonna flesh. Okay, we got the part about being a hero. Role-playing game where you play as flies. A fly-playing game niche. So we're talking about that they're surviving in the annoying world. And annoyance is a very interesting mechanic or experience. Emotion to evoke during a game. It's like, I'm gonna say it's like salt. You have to use it very sparingly, but salt isn't even the right term. It's like fish sauce or umami seasoning or ghost peppers. I'm trying to think of games that specifically use annoyance as intentionally, I think is what I mean to say. I'm trying to think of games that intentionally use annoyance as a mechanic. There's a lot of games that generate annoyance as a byproduct. So there's a lot of frustration in games. I think frustration is a very common game experience. And again, not one that's necessarily intentionally created, but more of a byproduct. Intentionally added or put into the game. So you get, there's a lot of situations you get frustrated when you're playing a game, right? When you go to top deck a card and you draw another land from the top of your deck in Magic the Gathering, or somebody takes the spot you want on a worker placement game, or deck building and you draw a hand of cards that are not really what you want. Like, frustration is, it's not even really a mechanic. It's like an essential part of most games, because games are about getting players to reach for a goal, and you need to put obstacles in the way of that goal. That's where the game arises from, right? The rules and the obstacles between the players and the goal, and obstacles create frustration. There's definitely a difference between frustration and annoyance. Frustration is a little easier to manage and deal with, because frustration means I see my goal, I know how to get there, I can get there. There's a sense of that it's possible for me to reach my goal, but there's something temporary in the way. So like, I'm working towards it, I'm not getting there yet, I'm a little stagnated, but there's hope. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Annoyance is more like, I'm not annoyed that I'm not reaching my goal. It's like a secondary thing. It's like something coming in, like your annoying sibling, right? An annoying rooster, cockadoodle-doing at the crack of dawn. I'm just unpacking annoyance a little bit to see if it's something that we can build around or work with mechanically. Say frustration is a common game experience when you can see what you want, you know you can get to your gola. Annoyance is more of a connotation of something inserting itself into your world from the outside. Intrusion is a big part of annoyance. Something you can't deal with, right? So frustration is a temporary thing. You know you'll get another chance to deal with whatever situation is causing the frustration to arise. A lot of times with annoyance, you can't really do anything about it. You know, if your sibling is there, if the rooster is there, you're annoyed. You might yell. You don't have a lot of agency. And interestingly, all of these different parts of annoyance are what make it potentially really difficult to design around or intentionally incorporate into a game design, because a lot of these are just quote-unquote bad game design, or things that we try not to do too much in games. Let me catch up with the chat here. Oh, wait, the cordyceps fungus? That's the one that eats the ants and the trees communicate with each other. I'm glad that we brought that back. Bring it back. Sid Sixel says, Pixar accused Jeffrey Katzenberg of stealing their idea and rushing out ants, so not surprising if true. Ooh. Got some drama. Oh my gosh. I like this, putting in the history of the ants. We've gotten into ants versus Bugs Life here. It's going to be a thing. Gameologist says, when I found out Ants was a Woody Allen animation vehicle, I got less interested in ever seeing it. Never been a Woody Allen fan. Always seemed a bit creepy to me. And sidebar, complete 180. What if Fiasco is about exploring each PC's pet peeves with each other rather than the disaster that brings them all down? I swear, if you check your phone while I'm talking to you one more time, I can't be responsible for what happens. Okay. This is cool. Just dug in to Annoyance a lot and how it's tricky as a game mechanic, but if we're talking about it more in a role-playing space, that seems something pretty cool to deal with in that sort of environment, because a lot of times you're trying not to be annoying, and in fact being the annoying person in a role-playing group can even get you kicked out of the group, right? Like, when I'm role-playing, I try everything in my power, potentially even not speaking up necessarily, and I worry. I have a lot of internal tension about doing things that might annoy my fellow party members, so surfacing that could be a really cool thing. I'm gonna make a note of that. In a lot of role-playing games, trying really hard to not be annoying. Would be cool to surface that. Sid Sixel says, take that games thrive on a satisfaction one player gets out of causing another level of annoyance. Yeah. And that's why a lot of people don't like them, right? A lot of people really hate take that elements in a game, won't even play a take that game because of the annoyance. Oh man. Trying to parse out my own feelings about take that games, because Abandon All Artichokes has got an element. You flip over the top of someone's deck, you might take that, get to keep that card, you might get to swap a card in their hand, give them one of your artichokes, and you get a powerful card. So there's definitely elements where you can mess up what people are trying to do. I've worked really hard to balance it, because interaction is fun, right? You know, you doing stuff to or with other people is one of the core reasons that we play games, but balancing it so that you're interacting and maybe frustrating them, but then they can do it back, so you're going back and forth and everyone gets to have that experience of being the annoyer. And then, like, it's more of a playfully devious thing. It's not such a big deal that people feel actually bad. With my first game, Heartcatchers, you're putting secrets down under people's stuff, basically. All the secrets are revealed at the end of the game, and you might have given them a bunch of negative points, you might have disrupted the board state, and I'm trying to parse out how is that okay? It's okay because while you're being annoyed, like, you are being annoyed, but at the same instant you're having a positive emotion at the same time. Like, at the same, like, literally simultaneously. So in Abandon All Artichokes, there's a reveal element to it. So for everybody sitting at the table, I play the card, get to look at the top card of your deck, and then choose whether I want to keep that card. The reveal moment, and there's subtle things in games we don't necessarily pay attention to that are pleasant and enjoyable. Drawing a card is very enjoyable. Just seeing what's in your deck, like seeing a next thing. It's a moment of surprise, right? Surprise and delight. I don't get to keep that, so that's a little bit of a feel bad there. But you can... I try and make it so, like, you do feel bad having something taken away from you, but you feel good because the other person gets something and they get to do something with it. So, I mean, it's not a cooperative game, so you don't intrinsically or extrinsically get rewarded for someone else doing well, but I like to think that there's a little bit of that mixing up the annoyance with delight to balance it up. So Bob, frustration is the knockoff of the game aggravation. I like that. Game biologist, stop touching your brother. Wiggles finger an inch away from brother's face. I'm not touching him. Oh my gosh. Yeah, in our Fiasco spin-off game, you're all going to be in our Annoyance RPG. You're all siblings trapped in a small vehicle, tormenting each other, and you have to learn to live with each other's differences. The Annoyance Machine. That's probably going to be our title. Unless we come up with something better like that. The Annoyance Machine. Senior Bob says, invading personal space. Someone is unnecessarily close proximity. Let me get a bulleted list, because I think I'm going to do things that are annoying. We touched on this a little bit, but build this out to see if we start to come up with ideas based around this. Intermittent things that are not within our control. Sounds, vibrations, touches, lights, etc. Loud or unpleasant sounds, that are not quite painful. And this is an interesting thing that we're pulling out here. I want to make a note of this because I think it's very important. Annoyance is a big step away from... What's the best way to put this? Pain, I think I'll say. So there's a very important distinction between someone doing something annoying and someone doing something hurtful. That's part of the reason that annoyance is so annoying, that annoyance is so frustrating. It's not, you know, we're talking back to the sibling thing. If they're touching you, you know, you can say something. It's like, stop touching your brother. Like, I'm not actually touching him, right? There's a level, threshold. I'm going to say here, it's not quite punishable. the annoyance, if we're talking about causing annoyance to someone else, there's a threshold beyond which the annoyance is unacceptable. And not that annoyance itself is truly acceptable, but there's definitely a line beyond which it goes from being annoyance to being, you know, actual discomfort. And this is a really interesting space as well, and something that we have to be careful about if we do decide to design something in this space. Everyone has different thresholds, right? If you have, if you're neurodiverse, for example, something like I'm not touching you, it's like the things that be annoying or frustrating to some people could be actually really painful or really uncomfortable. Or if you have certain makeup or disease or issues, it's things like temperature and sound, things that would just be annoying can be very painful. Just. Gamebalder says, it's easier to accept annoyance if it's accidental. It's a lot harder if it's deliberate or personal. That, yeah. That's a very important distinction. And it is a tricky space to explore, and something where you have to be very careful, I think. Like, if we're making a game, we talked about this role-playing game for tormenting each other. But game biologists had said based on people's pet peeves. So creating a game experience in which you're intentionally annoying people is pretty fraught. Like, I could see that going wrong in a lot of different ways. Yeah, I'm gonna write down unintentional annoyance / pet peeves. So for pet peeves, again, it's the phone thing, and also non-physical things, I think, is pretty important. So not like, oh, again, like poking someone over and over again. It's like, oh, that's annoying, but it's also, you know, an unwanted touch potentially. So there's a lot of, I would say, gray areas. There's not even gray areas. Like, you shouldn't be touching someone who doesn't want to be touched. So there's a lot of potential dangers and traps going down that direction. But if you're talking more about pet peeves of being on the phone, having, I say as I do the thing, right? Having long pauses in your stories, being late, right? There's a lot of different things you can play around with there. Okay, the Annoyance Engine. Ooh, I like that too. I'm gonna put that up with titles. That might be better than the Annoyance Machine. We're also coming with band names here. Half of the things that we ideate for game titles could be great band names. Am I getting it right here? Sid Sixel says, going off of the everybody gets to be the annoyer and the sibling rivalry concepts, what about a game which one player gets to make the rules each round? Kind of like a cross between Flux and Quell. Ooh, I like that. One player gets to make up the rules. One player is the boss. That's an interesting concept. Would it be one player is the parent? Who makes things up that everyone is supposed to do, but they don't want to, and they go all the way to the line, trying not to cross it. That reminds me a little bit of the concept we were doing a while back of the red light, green light thing, the stop go. It's like, I'm gonna go, but like not get quite too far, not get too far, push your luck, sort of a concept. Or one player is the bossy one. Who is trying to be subverted by the other players so that they can end up as the bossy one. And this comes back to the Happy Place, the role-playing game I was talking about, where one person's the mayor, and everything they say is absolute truth. That could be something interesting to wrap in here. One person who's the boss says, one person who's the boss, everything they say is absolute truth. The others are trying to undermine them without getting called out. Twist their words, I guess I would say. So let's get some examples here. Examples, the boss says we have to hold up our right hand. This round. Other players hover their hand as close to the table as possible without touching it. Get in a debate about what exactly does holding up your hand mean? Or they're trying to one-up by standing on chairs and holding their hand the highest. Sid Sixel says, for the fiasco-style RPG, would it be possible to target pet peeves of the characters? Oh, yeah, for sure. I think it should be the characters and not the players, especially if you come up with silly stuff. I think that would be a much safer space. Safer and funner space. That means instead of things like nails on a chalkboard allow chewing, you can go for more nonsensical things like purple next to white or using the word carrot. Yeah, I think that's just a very good thing to do in general for these types of ideas and types of games. There are some people out there who want to, some people, some designers, and some types of games where it makes sense to push you up to the bounds of discomfort. And I do that sometimes, you know, and then we die and you're playing as ghosts trying to figure out how you died so you can pass on to the other side. People have discomfort around death, so it has the potential to be an experience that causes some discomfort, but in most playthroughs it doesn't, because all of it is so nonsensical. If you're talking about specific things, like Sid Sixhill said about nails on a chalkboard, or you talk too much, like there's a lot of very fraught areas where it can get out of the magic circle, right? Where it can get out of the sphere of the game and start to bleed, right, into real life, and just become uncomfortable in a non-fun way. Discomfort can be fun, but in this situation, it can also just be discomfort, right? Silly stuff, safer and funner space to explore, easier to maintain the magic circle. Yeah, and I like this funny, right? This fun is funny, right? Purple next to white. It's like, I just can't stand when someone is reading a book. Or drinks juice, right? And you can have fun coming up with all the content for that as well. Gameologist, there's that awkwardness in a friendship when you've got pet peeves about what your friend does. Oh no. But you care more about the friendship than about making your friend uncomfortable, telling them about your peeve, and you end up living in annoyance while pretending you're not annoyed, and your poor friend has no idea they're tormenting you. Oh my gosh. That is... Oh no, I've done that thing to my mouse. I don't know how this has happened. Ooh, no. Oh my gosh. It does this thing where it turns into like 5 pointers, and I don't know how to fix that. Like, what has happened? Wow, that's so bittersweet, gameologist. Oh my gosh, I could write a novel on comfort and discomfort and friendship and relationships and just navigating this weird world of interpersonal connections. It's so weird too, right? Because they do a thing and it annoys you, and some of the things, you know, it's kind of your fault, like chewing or whatever, or wearing a shirt that you don't like. Same with romantic relationships too, right? And sometimes it's more serious, I guess. Like they're always like a couple minutes late to things. Yeah. And you're just in this space of, should I say anything about it? And then it just goes on a long time, and it's been years. And you're like, wow, at this point, if I say something, it's just going to be super weird, and I don't want to say anything. I think it's better. I think this is a total sidebar from what we're working on, but I like it when people say things, as long as something that I can do something about. It's like confession time. I get into my confession booth over here. I am not always great at being on time. There, I've said it. Oh my gosh, I feel so much better. And usually not like hours late. Like there's people who will be like 3 hours late. Like I care a lot about it, and I really want to be, and I feel really bad about messing with other people's schedules. But I also always want to cram in another thing. You know, busy. It's like I'm getting ready to leave, and I should empty the dishwasher and do this and this. And I always think that I can cram more stuff. I have a bad sense of time, I think, is what it boils down to. But my one friend who I hang out with a lot actually said that to me. He called me out for being late to hanging out. And I felt bad about it, and but I owned up to him. Like, yeah, you're right. I'm suck at that. And he let me know that he felt like I wasn't respecting his time, or I didn't like him that much, or it just wasn't being a very good friend doing that. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was not my intention at all. Like, I hadn't realized that it was having this impact. To me, it was sort of like, I wish I was a little better at this, but just the way the schedule works, it's a little difficult for me. But we had that conversation, and I'm working harder on it now that I know the impression that gives. It's like a little deep right there, but anyways, tell your friends about the pet peeves. Totally won't ruin, it'll make your relationships stronger, or it will completely tear you apart, and you will not be friends anymore. One of those two things will happen, or nothing will happen. Pineapple on pizza? What? Whoa, we're not going to get into the pineapple on pizza discussion, because I will fight you. I am a pineapple on pizza lover. I'm a supporter. I'm pineapple for life. I'm going to get a shirt. Oh, how fun would that be? I'm just going to get a shirt and wear it around with a Hawaiian pizza on it. Oh, and this is fight me? Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm getting distracted here, but this is really important. Pineapple pizza fight me shirt. Oh, tell me this is a thing. Oh, yes. Pineapple belongs on pizza. Oh my gosh. You see... Oh, there's a shirt for this. Oh. Okay, that one's kind of dirty. You can Google pineapple on pizza. You can find it for yourself. I'm not going to post that. Using an electric stove. Saying a hot dog isn't a sandwich. I like this. That's kind of fun too. Like, we're talking about completely nonsensical things, but like meme things that people get unreasonably worked up about. Like the pineapple on pizza thing. Who cares? Just don't eat it if you don't want it, but don't get mad at me for putting pineapple on my pizza. That could be fun and also very divisive sort of a game. Divisive. No, I need my shirt. Why? I need my pineapple. Oh, yes. Joke t-shirt. Why does this have so much stuff on there? That makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to post that. Fight me? Okay, here's one on TeePublic that they spelled fight, F-I-T-E. I don't know if I feel comfortable with that. Okay, Amazon. There we go. Yeah. Okay, this is my shirt. We're doing it. I'm posting it. Sam Bob, super glad we were able to chat in person about being annoying during Tuesday night design chats. Nice. Followed for pineapple pride. Yes. Oh, that could be another great shirt. Pineapple pizza pride shirt. Love is love. Oh my gosh. I can't believe I've never looked this up before. This is so adorable. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy. Emma's weekly board game design shirt. Redesign games and... Sure, I said shirt. Emma's weekly game design stream show where we talk about games and find cute shirts to buy. This is what we're doing now. I blame Senior Bob. This is not my fault. Look at how cute these shirts are. Oh my gosh. Okay. Go to PAX U. Let's do pro pineapple on pizza shirts. I'm in. I'm in for it. Sweet. I'm glad. I mean, again, I'm not saying that I'm going to judge anyone here in chat about their pizza preferences, but I just want to make it clear where I stand. Anyways, let's get back to this game design stuff and see where we're at. So we have a few ideas. I don't want to write these down because There's more than one fun thing that we've come up with today. Do a little retrospective of our ideas so we can pull everything together. Life of flies. Live as a fly surrounded by annoying humans with the existential dread of dying in a day. Although it's weird because they don't know anything other than a day-long lifespan. So for them, a day is a normal amount of time to live. Also, they're flies, so they probably don't think too much about their life. But if you are a humanized fly, right, what would you think about that? So we had said fiasco-style RPG, role-playing pet peeves. So people have mentioned fiasco style, so you're still doing a heist thing or a caper? But you're super annoyed? Or something else with the framing of the annoyance. Alright, I feel like we had one more idea that we were looking at. The sibling rivalry one. Yeah. So this is not a role-playing game, but something more mechanical / party game. Lightly role-playing? Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what category that would even fit in. It feels like party game. We want to develop a little more mechanics around this. Cool. Alright, so those are the ideas. Were we talking about another thing as well? I think that was most of Annoyance Machine, Annoyance Engine. Well, got a lot into what it means to be annoyance, annoyance combined with delight. What it means to be annoyance, what it means to be annoying, annoyance combined with delight, pineapple pizza, t-shirts. The fly is the hero trying to survive in a world, in an annoying world that is trying to kill it. Cool. That is a good number of concepts. I wanted to dig into, one of these. I think the fiasco style one. Siblings game concept, the twister of annoyance. Oh my gosh. Yeah, let's play around with the fiasco style one for a little bit. And fiasco, that's just a framing thing that we're using for it now. I haven't actually played fiasco, but I did want to sidebar this. Is drumroll? Yes, awesome. Yeah, so I haven't had a chance to play fiasco yet. I really want to because it's seems like a super cool game and also seems like a fun thing to do and also a learning experience to learn more about the kinds of things that role-playing games can do. But the cool thing is, and I say this unaffiliated with Fiasco at all or any of its creators, but they're doing a Kickstarter for the new version that replaces a lot of the dice and charts and things with cards. So it's meant to be a lot easier to dive into and a lot simpler for new players to jump into the game. Because it's something we talked about on our casting without components or casting with components panel at PAX. How Fiasco is awesome, but for new players, it can leave them a little directionless. So this new version should solve a lot of those. And it's just a new version. And it's on Kickstarter right now, so I'm going to post the link. It's only on there for 13 more days, so you should definitely check that out if you are at all interested in playing role-playing games, but also designing role-playing games that are a little less traditional than something like a D&D. You will just back that Kickstarter. Yes! Backer high five! They managed to sucker me into backing for all the playsets. Nice. Yeah, I did the base one because I've never played it before. I'm sure I'll like it. But yeah, I'm mostly a thing of like, how much am I going to play this? I have so many games I still need to play. I need to keep it down. Can't buy all things. Always want to buy all the things. So this is a cool thing about doing the role-playing games design challenge at PAX. It made me think a lot more functionally about how to put a role-playing game together. And the one thing that my players did mention is the role-playing aspect of it was very light, didn't tie in enough with the overall mechanics of the game. So if we're looking at this game concept that we're playing around with here, some of the elements that we can start to look at if we were to move forward and build out this game idea. Character creation. I have to say, you know, we've gone back and forth, we've dabbled a little bit in this design stream. Role-playing games, more traditional board, tabletop, card games. And the nice thing about ideating and building out a role-playing game is in this format I have set up here, I can type out a lot of the stuff. And it's a lot more about what is on the page and what is in the written rules than necessarily the board, cards, components, etc., etc. What is your pet peeve? I want a cool name for pet peeve. Ooh, it'd be cool too if you did like central pinnacle. Maybe you have multiple things that annoy you. I have to laugh a little, just like I love it, and it's so funny that we're really moving forward with this idea of a game that deals in pet peeves and annoyances. It makes me very happy. Annoys your character. Oh shoot, what am I doing? I just want bullets. Yeah, bullets, there we go. So we'd want some sort of chart, dice, cards to generate this because we do want it to be bounded. Interesting sidebar here about creating things in a role-playing world or story world, storytelling game. You can choose how guided you want a part of the game to be based on whether you provide, whether you limit the options or whether you make it an open-ended thing. So for example, a prompt for this game, in the character creation, you have your character sheet or what have you. What is your central annoyance? You just leave a blank space there for someone to write in whatever comes to mind, and that would lead a little bit more to potentially identifying more closely with your annoyance, right? But if you require players to make a selection from a limited assortment of items, you can have more control over what that ends up being. Limited pool of options. Have more control with where that component of the game, so component of the game goes. And obviously for a role-playing or storytelling game, you can't have that be everything. Otherwise it would be Mad Libs. Or then it ends up being a choose your own adventure game, which is cool, and that exists as a thing, but it's very different an experience from a role-playing or storytelling game. So what would be a cool way of generating these annoyances? Because that's a fun mechanic to dig into a little bit. Let's see. My character can't stand when blank is, oops, press my keys a little too much. Blank is blank with blank. So let's break down the one that we had. See, color purple is next to white. When a purple is sad with cheese. Oh man, that's the other tricky part about this, right? Is making it constrained and not completely nonsensical. Alright, let's tune into the chat while I churn on that in the back of my brain. Email just says, there's a tension between providing lots and lots of information about characters, settings, encounters, and the game structure, and starting with a minimal amount of world building and letting the players have a free-for-all while they play. I'm a fan of light scaffolding with lots of familiar touchstones that help players springboard into the story. Use 1,000 blank white cards approach to populate the story elements? What is 1,000 blank white cards? Is that a thing? Is that a thing I should know about? Is that a thing I should Google? I'm always Googling over here where no one can see it, which is probably safer. Especially with that pineapple shirt thing, there's definitely some questionable things that came up for that search. FYI. Oh my gosh, is this... Oh, I'm so excited. This is a real thing. Party game. Gnomic. That's cool. It's a party game played with cards in which the deck is created as part of the game. Though it has been played by adults and organized groups for a while, 1,000 black and white cards is also described as well-suited for children in Hoyle's Rules of Games. This is so exciting. Okay, I don't want to dig in too much to this right now because there's a lot of information here, but this is definitely something I want to come back and reference. Because I only read the intro to it and I'm already in. I'm already in on whatever is happening there. So this is the point where in the game design. Role-playing is what we're looking at the moment. We're digging into the mechanics of it and seeing how exactly we want to flesh out this part of the game experience. And this is the first thing that came to my mind, blanks where you have some constrained choices, maybe a chart to build off of, or cards, right? You have cards with random words on it for each of the sections. You can also just have a deck of pre-generated annoyances. Pros to this is faster, like we had mentioned, scaffolding to build, to leap right into the world very quickly. If you have your pre-generated annoyances, then someone can just grab that. So that's a pro. You also have more control over what those are so that people don't end up creating something that's a little too, that hits too close to home. The downside, especially in an RPG, is it can be too constrained and just get boring if this is your core character trait and you want to play this game a bunch of times, right? What if this is someone's favorite game and they play it over and over again and you just end up with can't stand being rickrolled. It's like, oh, I got the rickrolled one again. The pre-generated content thing is definitely visible, especially in a lot of party games where you have Cards Against Humanity or monikers, these types of games. If you play through them enough times, which you often do for a party game, right? Because it's really easy to break out. If you have one you enjoy, you might end up playing it a lot. And for those types of games where the joke is really in the thing, Apples to Apples is another great example for this. If the whole joke is contained within the card itself, the funny part of it is what it says on the card, and you get that a few times, each time becomes less interesting and less funny until it's just like, well, all of these are worn out now. I can't do this anymore. And you can supplement that with expansions, just a whole new set that you plug in. But having it completely constrained like that can reduce the game's longevity. I like it where there's a balance. So this could be a way to move forward with this design challenge as well. So you have a card for part of what you're doing, and then part of what you're doing gets filled in. I'm thinking right now about just one and how that works. And I think it really works really well because they do have a lot of cards. Each card has 5 options, I believe, and you call out the number. So you don't know as the caller outer what the word is. But every time you're in a new group, they're going to come up with new content. So even if you do somehow, out of the 500,000 words that are in that game, come up with the same thing, you're going to have a different experience for how the group responds to that. So this is something I might need to chew on a little bit. Some combination of pre-generated and player created. I think it's a good place to put a pin in that and let my brain chew on that a little bit and see what we come up with. Do characters have more than one annoyance? you gain, this one is a heading. You gain annoyances over time. Alright, so we have character creation. What are we doing with characters? This is my framework. This is my official guide to creating a role-playing game. You have characters in your more traditional role-playing game. You have characters in your role-playing game, and then they do stuff, right? If you're worried about starting to get into role-playing game design, you feel intimidated at all, that's it. That's all you gotta do. The characters and the do stuff. You can have a world building, world generation phase as well. World building, world generation. Yeah. Caveat. Not caveat. Rewind that. Role-playing game, you have characters, you create those characters, they do things in a place. That's where the world comes in. It's going to either be a pre-generated thing, again. A lot of systems will have worlds that they're built in. You know, Dungeons & Dragons is a very rich world. It's built over time, all the way over to systems that have no world, and you completely come up with it in some way, right? So next we'll get into what are we doing with the characters. Specifically, are we doing a fiasco type thing? I need to... Class game of power ambition and poor impulse control. Cinematic game of powerful ambition. Fiasco, GM list, designed to be played in a few hours with this excited dice. You engineer and play out stupid, disastrous situations, usually at the intersection of greed, fear, and lust. It's like making your own Coen Brothers movie. Cool. So again, we're not wedded to building out fiasco. It's an interesting touch point. You know, we can start from there and then start to evolve into our own thing. Game Builder says, have your players create cards for topics like job, age, relationship, hometown, etc., and annoyance. Shuffle each topic deck and draft cards around the table. Keep the deck your group builds and add more cards each time you play. Shared character building. I like that. It's a very different style. It's so fascinating. This is what I love getting more into role-playing games is it's not one thing. It's so many different things. And the intersection of role-playing and storytelling, there's a little bit of differences in there as well. But you can have everything from very Dungeons and Dragons. Like I have complete control over my character does, what they can do, what their life path is going to be like. And even within Dungeons and Dragons, you can make choices or you can roll dice on tables, right? And then let fate decide what some of these things are going to be. And then you have games in which the GM has more control over what happens to your characters. In Powered by the Apocalypse, when bad stuff happens to you, you can get very bad injuries. Probably in Dungeons and Dragons too, but I think a lot of players play Dungeons and Dragons in such a way that players have more control. And then a lot of games have this shared character creation where you create things together as a group, but you don't necessarily get to keep that. Or I've played games where you'll fill in a line and then either pass around or shuffle with each other. So each character has a piece specifically from somebody else. And that can be a very fun, collaborative way to do characters. Sid Sixel says, this direction reminds me a bit of RPG quick build cards I made for a game last year. Oh, cool. Every player had 2 traits and 1 quirk. They were dealt 6 traits, choose 2, and 2 quirks, choose 1. Oh, okay. I like that. Yeah. So cards like charming, humble, practical, and then quirks like to a fault, or but rarely at the same time. Ooh. So a player can be charming and humble, but rarely at the same time. If that is a game that you have online anywhere, I'd love to see a link for that. Also, I might totally steal that idea, or at least start with that idea and build out from there. Yeah, I know sometimes when you're saying I built a game, it might be a prototype or something that's not released or available, but if it is a thing I could check out, I would love to see more about that because that sounds super cool. I can give you a PDF of it. Okay, awesome. Yeah, you can post it here in message or DM on Twitter at Emma Larkins. Yeah, I'd love to dig more into that. Game Elder says, have you played Fun Employed? Yes. Yes, I played Fun Employed, actually. Anthony Conta, who's the designer of that, was one of the first board game designers who I ever met back in New York City. Back when it was much more of an indie game and less... it got pushed in some interesting directions by being pushed more out to mass market as opposed to more of a hobby game. But it's a super cool one. Had a lot of fun. A lot of fun with it. I tend to be pretty good with on-the-spot story role, like coming up with story beats in the moment. So I had fun and I was pretty good at it, which is probably why I enjoyed it. Super light role-playing, but you build a hand of 4 cards that you string together into a story. Combinatronics give it more replayability. I like that. Someone Has Died also has, is this storytelling? You're building a character. It's got really fun, flavorful, wonderfully illustrated cards. They're super silly. Like, you have spiders crawling over you all the time, or you have mommy issues. Sid Sickle says, not a published product, but I don't plan to pursue it as one. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I have like that. Yeah, not everything ends up being published or distributed, but that's kind of cool, right? Where I have friends working on things like, this isn't going to be a thing that I'm going to release, but you can check out and read this weird, quirky, interesting, different thing, get some ideas from it. Okay, I'm going to put Fun Employed into my character creation too, because I think there's some fun stuff to do with that. Cool. Game Owner says, I think of Fun Employed as storytelling for introverts. You have some agency over the story elements and you get enough story scaffolding that you don't have to create it all from scratch. I like too that your choices are in the story you tell. Having to work in your whole hand of cards is really cool because it makes you have to make tough storytelling choices. A lot of storytelling or more party style games, you have a hand of cards and you're like, this one's kind of boring. I'm never going to play this card. I might as well draw a new card for this because it's never going to come up. But you have your hand and this is your life now. You just have to deal with that. Makes it really cool mechanically. I like that design choice. Alright, so we do a world generations. What are we doing with the characters? Fiasco. I'm going to put this in here. So you can do a fiasco type thing where you just have a situation, right? You kind of, I believe, like there's not a lot of framing for it unless you're doing one of the play sets can give some framing. So I think it's Suburban Moms is one of them. And there's a bunch of other places that you can start from. So I have not necessarily a whole world, but like a small subsection of a world and figure out what your capers are going to be from there. What else could be? Fiasco. Just brainstorming here, getting some ideas that kids on bikes. Instead of dealing with the supernatural, And this could be cool too. Like, you're in a small town dealing with your interpersonal relationships. Maybe the story arc is built up around discovering these annoyances. Like Game Biologist had said earlier about having this friend, and you never knew that this thing really bothered them. So maybe the annoyances are secret, and your goal is to discover what they are and resolve them if you can. Or maybe lean into it and forever destroy your friendship. Maybe it's completely open. More like an And Then We Died. Could be on a spaceship and dealing with the annoyances. Just have absolutely no packaging or framing to it. I don't know if that's exactly what I want to do. Like what world? Like, if we were to make this a super narrow, if we were to focus on something, well, what could we be? It would be limiting to do that, but I like the idea for this one of making it very targeted of a group of people who would be annoyed by each other. Like, there's some cool things you can play around with, right? What if it's coworkers? Like we had talked about coworkers at a really frustrating job. Like The Office, right? And you're navigating your annoyances in this place. It would have to be some sort of place where people are forced together, right? So they can't easily escape the annoyances. Siblings on a road trip. That's a good one. Siblings on a road trip. Students on a field trip. Camp could be a thing. Trapped in a long haul colony spaceship without much to do. You're on a plane or a boat, maybe a cruise. Oh my gosh. This is a good one. I don't know if it would be big enough space, but you're trapped in an elevator. Emo says, a lot of the Fiasco playsets skew more mature. If the central conceit is annoyance, you can make a more family-friendly game structure. In line with the DMV, summer camp, college roommates, coworkers. Cool, I'm gonna add those as well. College roommates is a really good one. Yeah, I like it more family-friendly. That was definitely the vibe that I got through from Fiasco, especially with the cover art. Seemed like heisty, noir, like maybe a 20s style sort of thing, 20s, 30s, 40s, I don't know, it was all kind of blurred together for me. Man, there's so many good ones. I don't know which one is really speaking to me right now. I mean, the siblings one, like, how do I put this? Like, I'll just say I was a very annoying sibling. I'm not going to make any judgments about whether my siblings were annoying to me, but I know that I personally have committed some serious annoyances. I could see any of these working. Shoot. I'm like, I want to make it super specific and really dig into that situation. Maybe have a choice of 5 or 6 of these. You know, that could be a thing. Like pick out the 5 ones that we like best from this list and have those as play options. And that's something, even like role-playing games do need a lot of play testing as well. You can theory craft these kinds of things, but at the end of the day, you want to get in and test and see, you know, do my players have just like a super tight experience if it's always coworkers who have to come in to work on a Saturday. You know, if I frame it right around that tight nodule of an idea, is it a more fun experience? Or do they enjoy the flexibility of having a couple of things to choose from? Design questions to be answered in playtesting. For having a few options to choose from. And you as a designer, you know, this is something, it is a question that might be answered in playtesting, but it might also be, what kind of a game do you want to design? What kind of a game do I want to design? Does it really speak to me if it's in this sort of co-working environment? Or, you know, does the sibling one speak more to me? Sibling one could be fun for a more family-friendly one as well. Sibling works really well for this. We talked on our panel about how role-playing as kids is very easy for a lot of people compared to other types of role-playing, because we all have been kids. And I don't know about you, but I still have a very strong picture of what it was like for me to be a kid and what my experiences were. Not everyone has that, but most people can more easily get into a kid mentality than, for example, the mentality of a profession they've never done, or into being a mage, you know, if you've never played any sort of role-playing or digital role-playing. So Siblings 1 could be a pretty fun, accessible place to start as well. In the movie theater for Titanic, the movie so long my butt went to sleep while I was watching it. Oh my gosh, watching a movie, I love that. Maybe part of a convoy. Everyone had to communicate via radio. Ooh. Stuck in a small town you grew up in where everyone... Yeah, that's a little kids on bikes-ish. I like that. It's little... Oh man, it's kids on bikes... But I like the stuck in the small town vibe, because I think Kids on Bikes is a little bit more embracing the mentality, embracing the whole thing about being in your small town. Like, a lot of people want to be there, but this feeling about stuck is very visceral. Stuck in a small town girl where everyone knows everyone's business. Everyone knows everyone else's business. Yeah, people are nosy. A space convoy trucking goods for some reason. A war, a colony. Cool. All excellent ideas. Very excited about all the stuff we're coming up with right now. All right. I feel like this is a good pausing point. We're almost up to the 2 hours. Sometimes I stay a little longer, but today is Phil's birthday. He doesn't want me to tell everyone that, but I am, because everyone's really excited about his birthday. And we got some plans to do some fun stuff tonight. So, haven't completely pulled together all the strings for this game, but once again, I'm pretty excited about this idea. And I could see it fitting really well into the thing that I want to do more, of, coincidentally, very helpfully, putting up some one-page RPGs or like short 2-page RPGs, 8-page RPGs. I don't know exactly what the standard formats are for shorter role-playing experiences. But yeah, my vision is to get some of these things up onto itch, and maybe drive through RPG, or even just up on my website, put these things up. Maybe on my website, like not fully formed, like yeah, part of the tricky, like what am I going to play test all these really cool role-playing game ideas that I'm coming up with. Do want to test them, but I kind of also, I don't know who would play these. I kind of also just want to put them up on my website as like an untested section, like with the Design Masters Challenge that I did at PAX. That was completely untested, and people still, somebody has to be the first, right? So that could be cool, like having ideas, just have an untested, like a confidential stamp, like this has not been tested, this could be completely broken, you are the first of many to play this weird random indie role-playing game. Yeah. And again, it's important to get things out there if you're a designer. Get things play tested, share things, distribute things, because the faster you get stuff out into the world, the faster you get feedback, and the more quickly you can iterate. Not to put pressure on anyone and say that you should release anything ever before you're ready. But for me personally, I find it very helpful and very useful to just have stuff being released into the wild. So I'm excited to do more of that, and I think this is a perfect fit. So yay, success. I think today has been a great success. Happy B-Day to Phil. Thank you, Medileg. I'll make sure to pass that on to him. As always, you wonderful, lovely people, thank you so much for joining me on my stream. This is super helpful for me, and I hope it's helpful for you as well. I always like to point out, no one owns these ideas. Often I like to move forward, and I do have things in various stages based on the things that we come up with here, but feel free to take what we've done here and rev it in your own direction, because I find that from a core idea, especially something as amorphous as the things we tend to come up with on this show, everyone is going to come up with a different thing and take it in a different direction, and I think that's super exciting to see what people come up with from the same thing. You know, I did the design challenge with modern art, my prompts being modern art, McDonald's Play Place, wagering, and the last polar bear. Those were my core elements, but someone else would have come up with a completely different RPG dish, so to speak. Yeah. Thanks for joining me. If you like this show, you can follow my channel or even subscribe. You can also always talk to me about design here on my show, Tuesdays at 4 p.m. PST, or on Twitter. I'm at Emma Larkins. Always like chatting design there. You can also catch my show on Fridays. I missed the Friday show last week. Apologize for that. I got tied up with PAX stuff. But I will be there this Friday playing some games with Phil on stream, doing some casual, fun, light stuff to balance all the design work that I do around this place. It's going to be it for today. Love to see you again next time. But in the meantime, have fun, and I'll see you around the table. Bye.